Hi, everybody. Yeah, we have the unfortunate, what's it called? The very unfortunate encounter of us having to do this panel just before lunch, but I hope we are entertaining enough. How many founders are in the room? How many founders do we have? Okay. How many investors? Ecosystem builders? Okay, there's quite a few. Okay, so today's panel is going to be about how to pitch well. So before I get into all the details that we're going to talk about, I'd like to introduce to the stage our three speakers. One is from Saari Ventures, Seedstars, and E3 Capital. So please, everybody, come to the stage. Yay, welcome, welcome. Clap more, guys. We need to hear the noise. Yay, thank you. These are your investors. So you actually need to be giving them a lot of props. Welcome, welcome. Hi, guys. How are you doing? I think there are mics right there. So we might as well just get straight into it because we're running out of time. But yeah, so we will start with you. Can you please give us a bit of an intro, and then we'll get into the nitty-gritties of what we're going to be talking about.
This is on, you can hear me? Yeah. Hi, everyone. Good morning. I'm Andrew Dodge from E3 Capital. We're one of the oldest dedicated early-stage climate tech investors across the continent. We're investing across two funds. We manage about $150 million, looking for pre-seed, seed, and pre-series A startups that are doing innovative things in the climate tech space.
Hello, everyone. It's Basmat from Saari Ventures. I've been working in startups for a while. Then I'm on the venture capital side now, so both worlds.
Wonderful.
Hi, everyone. My name is Tamim. I run Seedstars Ventures. So we're an early stage fund investing in Africa. I'm a former founder, having built a company also here on the continent, and very happy to share tips and insights today on how to pitch.
Okay, wonderful. So, guys, the title of this session is going to be the art of the pitch and what investors really want to hear. So, I think it's very interesting that we have investors who are sector agnostic on the panel. We also have investors who are focused fully on climate. We have a global investor. We have a North Africa investor. So, there's going to be a lot of experience in this group, and they're going to impart some of their insights to us. So I'll start with the hard one. What are the worst pitches made out of? I will start with you. Yeah.
So I think first I'll start with an observation on like how investors look at pitches. I'm sure most founders in the room are familiar with solutions like DocSend that allow you to track how much time investors are spending on each slide. Yeah. We do the same as investors. When we pitch our own investors, we use DocSend, and we can track how much time is spent on each slide. We pulled some interesting statistics on that. The gap between the first slide and the second slide is about 30%. So you have 30% of people who don't go beyond slide 2.
Oh, wow.
And the overall time spent on decks is less than a minute. So you have a very strong effort to put on how you convey messages. And to your question, I think the worst pitches are pitches where at the second slide, you don't know where you are, you don't know what you're reading, you don't know what the startup is doing. And you're not encouraging the reader to actually go through the next slides, where you might have very important things that you're sharing. So I think this is the worst decks for me, really.
Okay, Basmat?
I think the worst thing to do while pitching is saying something that is not true. I'm sure you've all attended like 1,000 panels on the same topic, listened to many podcasts and watched many videos on this topic. So I'll try to tell you something new, and I will make you uncomfortable. So heads up. Many startups say that they are either AI or machine learning, and many of them say that they are impact startups, while in fact this is not true. Because if you're using ChatGPT, this doesn't make you an AI company. And if you are giving microloans to small farmers with like 1,000, 100 interest, this is not impact. This is not financial inclusion.
Yeah.
So don't say anything that is not true. Just say what you do. It's simple. Say what you do and stay true to what you do. Because using buzzwords doesn't make sense anymore.
Yeah.
And
Industry jargon.
Yeah, I would love to tell you something that Jean-Luc has said that makes perfect sense. He's the author of From Zero to AI, and he's teaching at Harvard. He said something that's on point. Nobody now is pitching an internet product. We're pitching products. So it's going to be that for AI too. Nobody's going to pitch an AI product. It's going to be a product.
Yeah.
So pitch your product, no buzzwords.
Okay. Andrew, any thoughts on this?
Yeah, I think it depends a lot on the context of where pitch is happening, right?
Yeah.
A pitch that's happening at an event like AfricArena is going to have a certain style, but maybe I can answer the question if you're coming into our office at E3 or we're on a call and you're pitching directly to us. And I think, what's going through our heads at the start of the pitch, right? I mean, we've probably had a look through the deck already. We probably want to have a conversation because we're interested and we think what we're doing is interesting. But I think where a founder will lose us quite early on is if it becomes pretty obvious that they haven't really thought about how they fit into our strategy as a VC, right? Where have they done their research into what our portfolio looks like, where we are in our deployment cycle? What are the kinds of tickets that we're looking to invest at the right kinds of valuations in terms of the fundraising curve? And so, that becomes pretty obvious within the first 2 or 3 slides. And I think it's super important for founders to make sure that they have done the homework on the VCs that they're pitching to before, because then the conversation can become really targeted really quickly. And where we get sort of really distracted and, open up Wordle and start, well, we don't do that obviously, but get distracted is when there's a complete mismatch from early on, right? You're coming in and trying to raise at a $50, pre-valuation. You want us to put $5 million in, and that's just not, it's a complete mismatch for our fund.
Yeah. Okay, that's a very interesting point. So I'm a pitch coach at Startup Bootcamp AfriTech, by the way. So we go through a lot of pitch decks as well. We go through a lot of pitch workshops, and one resonating thing has been the storytelling side of things. So I'll start with you, Basmat, in terms of the story. It's very difficult to strike a balance between creating a persona who is believable and also then overdoing it. So how do you strike that balance as a founder?
Yeah. I want to start by something that is very basic, but it is important.
Yeah.
Founder fatigue is real. I know that. Coming from there, I know that. So this whole venture capital is about the future. So if you're not optimistic and if you don't believe in your own story, nobody else will believe. So no matter how it's hard now, no matter what's going on, what you're going through, you need to have this spark when pitching. You need to have this enthusiasm while telling the story, because if you don't believe in your future, why would I? Why would anyone? So it's not just about the storyline, it's also about the enthusiasm about the story, the believing in the story. So this is my one tip. Believe in what you do, and if it comes from your heart, it reaches people's heart.
Yeah, you can pull at our heartstrings if you personalize your story. Andrew, you have something to add there?
I just wanted to actually add on that thread of what Basmat was saying. I think if I think through all of the pitches or all of the meetings we've had, that moment for me where I'm speaking to a founder and there's like a penny kind of drops for me, and I really want to take this deal forward, is when the founder, when she paints a picture of the future that isn't here today, right? And because we're in venture capital, right? We're in the business of buying something that doesn't exist in the future. The PE function is happening in the Western next door, right? Like here we really need to see. What really gets me excited is where a founder comes in and pitches a vision for, I don't know, the South African energy landscape, but not as it looks like today, but building a solution for a market that's coming in the future, because that's what we really get excited to get behind.
And if I may add to this very small point, people tend to think that this is all about numbers, and it's not. It is a people job. So you can have the best idea, wonderful team, you get the money, and if you're not a resilient leader, this is not going to work. So resilience, leaders, stories.
Okay, wonderful. Tamim, so you have a perspective, a global perspective to this. And I wanted to know, what is the difference between the African pitch decks or the African pitches that you see compared to what is out there in the Middle East and in Europe where you operate at Seedstars?
So I personally invest exclusively in Africa.
In Africa, yes.
So I don't necessarily have that perspective. Okay. But what I can say is that, and I'll let you chip in if you have different views. But over the past 2 to 3 years, we've seen tremendous improvement in the quality of the pitch decks. To the extent that sometimes it's a bit disappointing because they all look the same.
Yeah.
And so what was making one entrepreneur stand out tends to be less visible now. Yeah. But overall, I think that entrepreneurs are doing an increasingly better job at doing that, thanks to coaches like yourself. Yeah. But I think that's very encouraging. We need, however, to avoid just replicating what we are seeing in other markets.
Yeah.
Every single founder today, most founders, will have the standard YC pitch, where they will relate to a personal story, blah blah blah, and then on slide 3 they say, "Hey, and I'm solving this problem." And it's a great way, it's a great framework to put the story, but we need to be mindful about, our ecosystems need to be presented for what they are, especially when pitching outside of Africa.
Yeah.
And that requires earlier on some sort of more detailed approach to what entrepreneurs are building.
Okay, that's very interesting. So Andrew, in terms of, I know you work with impact as well and data. So climate innovation, there's very little data that exists in Africa. How does a founder fix their validation or traction slide or that market opportunity slide where you have to talk about the numbers that exist when the numbers are very sparse in Africa? How do you solve for that?
That's a big question.
Yeah.
I mean, I think again, thinking about what's really important for us to see in a deck is a clear. Well, I mean, we've seen 1,000 decks, right? So every deck is. The market is enormous. We're going to be Pan-Africa. In reality, you're probably not going to be. But what I think what really interests us is when there's a clear link from that data, from the product, from the traction, into those markets that's can clearly define what those validation points are, and where those validation points are clearly communicated, are well laid out by the founders. Then we can really see how that product has got a path to demonstrating that traction. That's super important to see the kinds of growth that we are looking for.
Okay, cool. Basmat, so in terms of, so North Africa has various languages and some of them are Francophone countries, right? So in terms of the pitching itself, how has that language barrier impacted founders and how can they combat that, especially when you're a French speaker pitching to an English investor?
Yeah. So luckily nowadays, pretty much everyone speaks English. So this is making things easier.
Yeah.
We all, North Africa, we all speak Arabic, like classic Arabic.
Yeah.
So this is also a win for us. But there's something else that I really want to share about this point, regardless of the language. Even if you're pitching in your second or third language, if you don't know how to explain your business in 3 minutes, this is a problem.
Yeah.
And it doesn't have to be hard. You don't have to use 5 big words in one sentence in order to look smarter, because this doesn't make you smarter. Just use simple words, straightforward. If there is an 8-year-old in the room, he should understand what you're saying, and that's it. Yeah. So don't feel the burden of having to say stuff that like everybody would be impressed. Why? Because it doesn't impress anyone.
Yeah.
Just use simple language. Even if it's your third language, you can do it. So, yeah.
That's good. I wanted to talk about this simplicity concept with you, Tamim, as well. But for you, the challenge is, can you give me an example of one story that you feel like, okay, this pitch was a good pitch because of how simple the solution was and how simply it was explained?
Well, we have I think that, I mean, I can relate to what you guys shared before.
Yeah.
I think it's the simplicity of the story that makes you immediately understand. And this is what also I was saying before, that sometimes the story, when an investor is looking from outside the continent into the continent, you need to explain properly what the problem is, and in a way that, like you said, an 8-year-old will understand. And I will give you just one example. We invested in an internet service provider in Kenya.
Okay.
Plain and simple, internet service provider. They're not doing anything crazy, right? The way they put it in their pitch is that it's unlimited broadband that doesn't exist in Africa, or it's very rare, and it's affordable.
Okay.
And with these two words, I mean, I was clearly understanding what problem they were solving, for what communities they were solving the problem, and it's really, it needs to be super compelling. So exactly to what you were saying, Basmat, before.
Yeah, and if I may add to that simplicity concept, there is one of our portfolio companies. I admire how the entrepreneur pitched his business, because he's just true. Like, he says, we don't have the most complex model. We just spend so much time figuring out how this is going to work, and now it works. And they have exponential growth. This is a company I would invest in. I don't need more than that. So it's not about crazy words or crazy stories or making stuff look more complicated. It's not about that. It's about having a real business, being true to what you do, and growth, scaling.
So another often overlooked but very important part of a pitch is the Q&A and how you respond to the Q&A. Andrew, any tips around the Q&A section?
Any tips?
Yes, for founders.
For founders.
Yeah. How do you tackle a Q&A where everybody's grilling you?
I think again, to the points that have been made earlier, clarity of question, the ability to kind of communicate in very, very simple terms. But I think maybe I'll focus on one comment, which is, every time we look at a pitch deck, the financial slide looks exactly the same. Everyone's got revenues and EBITDA that's going this way, exactly the same as the competition. You've got all the ticks, and everyone else has got all the red crosses, and you're the best, right? And we know that in reality that isn't the case. I think when it comes to Q&A, something that we're certainly doing, and we're by no means the only ones in the market that's doing that. I think given the cycle that VC's gone through over the last 2 years, is we're really, really focusing in on unit economics now and understanding path to profitability, what margins look like. It's a really, really important metric for us as a fund these days. We really want to know that we're giving you capital, you're going to be able to raise more capital, but there is a path to profitability here that is sustainable. And I think that's going to maybe come up in a Q&A more than necessarily just a 2-minute pitch, but I think it's a super important part of that value proposition that I think founders need to be aware of and be able to communicate very, very clearly when they're having that discussion. So understand your pricing, understand your cost, understand your after sales, how you're going to get your product into the market, how you're going to keep your customers, and ultimately generate that value.
Yeah, and focus on the first customer, actually, because when you know how much you're charging that one customer, you can easily translate to all the numbers that you give us in your business model. So that's a very important point. I think we're about to run out of time, but I think I would like us to do a round robin of tips, like anything else that you feel like is very important for founders to know when they're pitching. I'll start with you, Tamim. The mic is off. Yeah.
Thanks. Sorry. Thank you. So yeah, I mean, there's a list of things that we like to see and a list of things that we don't like to see. I'll just share a few points. Don't put a valuation in your deck. Let the investors decide for you. And I think that's something that we're seeing very often. Maybe someone wants to pay more, and you're determining a price for them. That's not what they're ready to pay. So it can go, of course, the other side. But I tend to encourage entrepreneurs not to put that and let the market decide on that. I think we're seeing sometimes confusion on numbers. Entrepreneurs pitching LTV, sorry, not LTV, revenue for transaction volume, and voluntarily trying to mix up messages to appear, better, bigger, and I think that's a mistake, because if I see this lack of transparency, I can tell you for sure that I won't be willing to work with you.
Yeah.
So yeah, there are quite a few things, but I think really a lot of these pitfalls are very easy to avoid. So it's not making it a difficult exercise to pitch, and I'll finish on a positive note. There are a lot of tutorials. There are a lot of people who can help you with the pitch deck, and so it's something that you can really refine to have a great first contact with the investors, and that's really what matters most. Because, like I said, we spend about 1 minute on a pitch deck, and so that first contact is absolutely crucial.
Yeah. Okay. Basmat.
I would love to tell you that my name is Basmat al-Sabah at the very end of the panel. No, it's fine.
Right.
This is my first name. It means smile of the morning, people.
Oh, nice.
So back to people, back to the side of the people. Don't be on the defensive. If you're an entrepreneur, don't be on the defensive. If you get criticism, if you're asked questions that are not necessarily so, just try to be humble, try to answer, and try to take in what's said, because maybe there's something there. Maybe there's someone who's telling you something that doesn't look very cool to you. Maybe it helps. So yeah, be humble and keep it simple.
Yeah, and take the feedback.
Take the feedback.
Yeah, any feedback is good feedback.
Yeah.
Yeah, Andrew.
Yeah, maybe just share two closing points. The first is that in Africa, the ecosystem is small. If I know Tamim's looking at a deal, I'm going to phone him up and we're going to have a conversation. And so there's no kind of room to be playing us off each other or telling one message to someone and a different message to someone else. All the VCs, we all come to the same events, we all co-invest in the same deals, and we all know each other. And so I think that integrity of the process is really important. And then I think secondly, again, to maybe end on a positive note, is at the end of the day, we're investing in people, right? And so we want to know that the founders that we're investing are good managers, they're good operators, they're building good teams. We don't like celebrity CEOs who are great at doing TED Talks, and it's more about them than the companies they're building. We want to know that when they're pitching, they're highlighting the strengths across their team, that they can bring people in alongside them, because these businesses, all the examples of success, none of them are one-man or woman shows. They're teams, and so for us, it's about investing in people and the ability to grow with that.
Absolutely, that's very good. So I think now we'll give room for Q&A. Any questions in the room? Questions, everybody? Oh, okay. Yes, hi. I think we need a mic there.
Hi, I'm Nirina from Madagascar. Thank you for those tips. And you talk a lot of what you don't want to hear in a pitch, but I'd like you to share with us what can we say to convince you to invest in our project, even if it's in an early stage, it's a startup. Let's say I just began 3 months ago, and I totally trust in my project, but I need someone to help me to scale and to run the business. Thank you.
Sorry? Okay. I'll tell you one thing that that convinced me. Validation. Even if you are in the very early stage, try to validate your product as much as you can at this stage, so that when you come to me, you don't sell me something that is not there. You tell me, I validated, I've done that, I found out that this is working. So validate before speaking to anyone.
Yeah, so have a few customers that have actually believed in your product or show that you've done your research. I think it's a very important part of things. Any other questions?
And just to add on
Yes.
that, I think at different levels of maturity come different levels of proof points.
Yeah.
When you're pitching, like you said, I think you started 3 months ago. Obviously, you can't pitch any investor with the same sort of achievements. And I think you really need, like I think you said that, Andrew, earlier, you really need to do the research before you reach out to investors, because someone will invest pre-revenue, someone will invest post-revenue, and you really need to figure out what's the right proof point for everybody.
Yeah. Okay. I think there are no more questions, and thank you everybody for joining us. I think key points, the investors have really given us a lot to think about around our pitches, and I think the resonating theme is simplicity, integrity as well, and it's also always very important to do your research so that you don't get so many no's. Know the investors that you're talking to. So thank you everybody for joining us. Thank you guys for this panel. Very exciting.